There's always going to be issues within any organization.
Windsor's chief of police defends the service after a report points out systemic issues in the organization. A one-on-one interview tonight.
In the spring, where we were just like, I can't even talk right now. If you bring another math textbook to me, I'm gonna cry.
As parents come off months at home with their kids, they now have to decide whether to send them to school or have them learn remotely. We'll have the latest from parents and the boards. A live look outside here, the Detroit River looking refreshing today. You step outside and you feel the humidity. It's feeling like 32 degrees out there. Should continue into the weekend. Colette Kennedy has the full forecast tonight. I'm Chris Ensing. Thanks for joining us. We are hours into the first full day of Stage 3 here in Windsor-Essex, the last to join the rest of Ontario in the reopening stages. COVID cases linked to outbreaks at area farms are part of what held the region back, but those numbers have dipped. CBC's Jason Vio joins us now. What's it look like out there today?
Well, Chris, it depends really on where you go. I called a number of restaurants this morning early that were serving breakfast, and they say on the first day they're allowed to let customers indoors to dine. They're not going to, and for a couple of reasons. They say, one, they want to wait and see a week or two how things go because this is uncharted territory. This is the first day of Stage 3 for Windsor-Essex, but they also feel that it is the safest option for their staff and for their customers just to continue serving people outside on the patio like the one here behind me. But I did find one restaurant today that was open indoors and taking advantage of the new rules that the government has allowed Windsor-Essex to do. And they're taking extra precautions in addition to sanitization, physical distancing. They're also taking names and phone numbers at the front door to if contact tracing was ever needed. But before the pandemic, they could have, or they had 20 tables and upwards of 80 people inside that restaurant. Now that's been sliced in half because of physical distancing measures.
It's a new way of living. I mean, all this is new to everyone. It's definitely taken a toll on us emotionally and to our business, but you know, we're gonna get back in there, just make sure that we're doing our job right and everyone is safe and healthy.
Gyms are another operation that you'll notice started opening again today in the city, in the county as well. True Fitness in Windsor opened its doors, and the owner says that it's been a long 5 months. It's been a struggle, and they needed to apply for some government loans and go into some debt just to stay afloat because their doors were shut. And now that they're open, there are a number of measures that they've had to put in place, spacing machines out 6 feet so that you can maintain that physical distancing, and also arrows to help with the flow of the gym and keep people moving in one direction, and hand sanitizer is also readily available.
We've been eagerly and patiently waiting over the last 4 to 6 weeks, thinking that, okay, next week will be the week, okay, the premier is going to announce today that we're going to be able to open in the next few days. So today definitely feels like Christmas Day for me, and being able to open our facilities back up for our members.
Now, masks are not mandatory in gyms, according to the health unit, if you're working out. But Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkens did issue an order earlier today making masks mandatory in all public spaces beyond businesses. That was already in effect from the health unit. So things like community centers, entertainment venues, and even things like apartment buildings where there are common spaces, hallways, laundry rooms, and elevators, for example. Chris.
A lot of excitement there, Jason, but this has been a painful summer for farms and the people who work there. One of the areas to get a lot of attention here in Windsor-Essex. They've been held back, part of our region, from starting to open back up again. We're here today in Stage 3, but where do the farms sit now, Jason?
That's right. So the local medical officer of health, as we know, has said within the last week or so that the situation when it comes to COVID on farms and among farm workers is under control. And Santiago Escobar agrees with that. He speaks with migrant workers on a daily basis, so he says he has a good sense of what's going on at the ground level, and he represents them at a union level. He's heard of more migrant workers getting access to PPE that they need, which he says obviously is a good thing, but he admits testing is still an issue.
Problem is that some employers doesn't want to test their workforce because if these workers tested positive, means that they have to slow down the operation productivity, and in some cases shut down their operations. And I think this is wrong.
Now, Ontario Health tells CBC News as of yesterday, they've tested 55 farms in Windsor-Essex, 38 on site, 17 at the assessment center, which is a far cry, though, from the total 176 farms that exist in Windsor-Essex.
Thanks for Jason. CBC's Jason Vio live tonight. More information now for parents and students about their return to school. This morning, the health unit released its recommendations for reopening, but it comes with difficulties.
Since we are the last region to move forward, we will have fewer weeks worth of information to build on, less time to ensure case counts remain low, and greater urgency to get the plan right.
A few of the recommendations here: physical distancing at least 2 meters in the classroom, providing frequent opportunities for all to wash and sanitize their hands, and encouraging the use of mask wearing in all indoor spaces. Now, to ensure schools keep cleaning a top priority, the health unit suggests regular cleaning of high-touch surfaces and teaching students to properly clean the areas around them. Cleaning classrooms, equipment, and spaces between use, another priority here. Meanwhile, local school boards and parents are trying to finalize their plans for the fall. Boards are laying out what reopening should look like, while parents try to make their best choice for their kids. Stacey Janzer joins us live tonight. Stacey, what are parents feeling about all of this?
Well, here at the Public Board and the Catholic Board, they both released their back to school plans. Parents are saying they still want some more information, and it's important because they're going to shortly have to decide whether or not to send their children back to school. I spoke with one mother who says she needs some more concrete details before she's ready to make that decision.
For me, the biggest issue right now with making that deadline on Monday is not having all the information yet, right? We don't actually know what remote learning will look like. So those missing pieces, also the protocol for outbreaks coming from the public health, waiting for that information. Once we know those things and once we have the whole picture, I feel like then parents are able to make a more informed decision. With going back to school, from what I've heard from our board, I really do think they are doing everything that they can. It is not necessarily prevention. Like we can't prevent it. This is a mitigate it and figure out how we're going to all cope. And I actually think that going that route is wise. And letting parents know that is wise, because that's how life is going to be for the next little while. This isn't a couple months worth of school. This is long-term, in my opinion. I haven't heard that from anybody officially, but I believe that this is a long-term change for us for a little bit.
McKay says she does have some options. Both her and her husband work from home, but it can be stressful. 3 kids, 3 different grades. And she says her kids are ready to go back to school. And if she decides to let them go back to school, she's going to make sure each of them is wearing a mask.
Now, Stacey, as we heard from Dr. Ahmed earlier there, since our region is the last to move into stage 3, it gives officials less time than other places in the province to really prepare for back to school. Both boards presented those plans. What do board members think? Are they satisfied with the outlines?
Not everyone is satisfied. There was the meeting last night with the Public Board. The Kingsville trustee made a motion that students at Leamington and Kingsville high schools start the year online only, but that came with a lot of pushback.
Looking at the reopening plan that was presented to us, I felt it really didn't recognize the niche and the specific conditions for those in Leamington, Kingsville, to give assurance to parents that they're making informed decisions and that we've really prepared.
Now, that motion didn't go through, and parents need to make a decision soon about whether or not to keep their kids at home, learning virtually, or sending them in person in class. The Public Board is giving parents until the end of the week, Catholic Board until Monday, and the Public Board is reminding parents that there's going to be limited opportunities in the school year to make a change from at home to in-person learning. Chris.
Thanks to Stacey. The CBC's Stacey Jasmine live tonight. Contract talks have started between Detroit's big 3 automakers and its 20,000 members of Unifor. Now, it all started with a document exchange this morning instead of the usual ceremonial handshake because of COVID-19. The impact of the discussions will affect employees at FCA, Ford, and GM for the next 4 years. Existing agreements expire on September 21st. Now, Unifor's president says he's going to take a hard line in these negotiations despite the economic crisis caused by the pandemic.
So this is going to be about product. It's going to be about stabilizing the footprint. It's going to be about where the industry is heading in the future, but it's about rewarding our members as well for their incredible sacrifices and their contributions to their profitability.
He says he won't let the pandemic be an excuse for manufacturers going forward as the union tries to secure new product commitments and job security for plants in Windsor, Oakville, Brampton, and St. Catharines. All this especially after the loss of the FCA third shift right here in Windsor and the end of vehicle assembly at the GM plant in Oshawa. But some say the uncertainty of the times makes things difficult.
You know, there's a lot that's working against Unifor right now. The pandemic obviously makes long-term planning incredibly difficult, and automakers might not be willing to invest as much if they don't know what the market looks like going forward. And there are a lot of doubts about what the market looks like and whether it's pent-up demand right now or whether we have a more sustainable sales pace going forward.
FCA Canada says the company's committed to negotiating a fair agreement. GM Canada says the company is looking for a more, quote, flexible agreement with the union. And the VP for Ford says the pandemic has been an unprecedented challenge for the organization and tough decisions have to be made. Windsor's police chief has reviewed the recently completed investigation into the service. Chief Pam Mizuno says that she agrees with the report's conclusion that the service has lots to be proud of, but that there are systemic issues that need work. I spoke with her about the report today, which looked at allegations of corruption, improper hiring practices, and that 911 call from former Chief Al Frederick's home. Here's part of our conversation. We start with the morale in the service.
They talk about how there are a number of officers who spoke in highly positive terms about the service, but that senior leadership, past and present, reject the allegations that morale is generally low. How do you explain the gap there?
Well, I think there's always, I mean, the commission, we have to remember, although they interviewed dozens of people, they didn't interview all the members of the service. They interviewed those members that came forward who were complainants. And as well, as the investigation moved forward, it led them to other members. So we have to remember that this wasn't a survey done of our membership. And moving forward, as recommended by the commission, the survey is something that we are looking towards doing. And one of the key recommendations from this report is about communication and improving our internal communication. And once we start, we've already made some strides at doing that, and I think that was recognized in the report. And of course, we're always striving to do better. Communicating internally with our membership. And when you make those improvements, you're going to improve, the general feeling around the service, of course, when they're informed about what's happening.
How would you characterize the morale within the service currently?
I think that, I think as a service, we're a very positive service. I think we have excellent members. We do a great job. I think that's reflected in the service level to the community. And I think as well in some of the recent events, the community has come forward and shown a lot of support. And, that indicates to me that our members are providing, excellent service to the community, and our membership, if they're providing that excellent service to the community, it means that, they're doing very well internally. There's always going to be issues within any organization. And I don't think that, our morale is, suffering any differently than any other organization.
Okay, and as far here, moving on to another thing that the report had looked at here was the 911 call from the former chief's home. It was over a verbal dispute. It says that both the board and the service should be commended on how it acted, but called for policy changes in two ways: on the investigations front and as well on how investigations involving senior members of the police service, like the chief or the deputy chief, are made public. What kind of commitment are you able to make to having better communication of investigations that include senior ranking officers, chiefs, deputy chiefs, or board members?
Of course, we're going to take a look at the recommendations from the commission and, put some thought into, how we can address those issues that they've identified. I think it was very clear that the service acted appropriately, the board acted appropriately, the investigation was conducted properly. And again, I go back to, how can we improve our communication, both internally and externally? And we'll be looking at making those improvements.
Considering what the OCPC has said and you're looking at those recommendations, would you have changed anything with how it was handled if you were the chief at the time, as far as making that call public or any of the information surrounding it?
Well, I think we just have to look to the future and how we're going to handle these things in the future and make sure that we have some direction for our membership, and the board will do their part as well in ensuring that they have the proper policies in place to handle these types of things moving forward should they arise.
Just finally here, coming in as a new chief, you're sort of parallel with what Frederick had done. He came in with project accountability and some questions around transparency and accountability. And in this report, at times he's commended for the actions that he took, but wasn't able to eradicate some of the systemic issues that still exist within the service. You come in now and you're facing similar issues. How do you try and find a way to create change, looking at what's happened already and what you want to place as priorities for the next years of your term?
Well, I think, Chief Frederick made some progress on a lot of issues during his tenure as chief. And I think moving forward, we can build on some of those things. I think the report is very positive in a lot of ways. Again, the commission's comment is we have much to be proud of, but there is a lot of work to be done. Some of these issues that are identified when you're looking at gender and diversity within the service and how we can improve on that, these were things that were started during Chief Frederick's tenure, and things that we're going to continue to build on moving forward. We've made some improvements in some areas, but we do have some work to be done. And we are committed to doing that. We committed to doing that back in 2012 when we started the Human Rights Project, and we're just going to continue to build on these things.
You can read more about that story on our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. Also, a date has been set for the Ward 7 by-election. It's scheduled for Monday, October 5th. Now, that's for the empty seat on City Council, left vacant by Windsor-Tecumseh MP Eric Kuzmarchuk. Voting will happen in person at the WFCU Center. The city says it'll be preparing over the coming weeks to make sure everything is done with COVID-19 precautions in mind, and advanced voting will also be made available. For the first time since March, we got a peek into the government's books, and it looks like the province's sky-high budget is surging to record levels. The deficit has now nearly doubled, and the province is almost $40 billion in the red. Farah Morelli breaks it down for us.
From a health crisis to an economic crisis, the latest figures from the Ontario government paint a bleak picture.
We are in for a difficult economic time. We've always been very frank with Ontarians about that.
In March, the government announced its $17 billion COVID-19 relief fund. The government now says spending for that relief will jump to $30 billion. So where's that money going? The province is spending an additional $4.4 billion on healthcare for things like hospital capacity, COVID-19 prevention in long-term care homes, testing, and more PPE. It's spending an additional $7.3 billion on what it calls people in jobs. That's to support a $4 an hour increase in pandemic pay for frontline workers, and includes cash to help municipalities in transit. So what does this all mean? The deficit in this province is projected to nearly double, from $20.5 billion to $38.5 billion.
While the current level of government spending and deficits are not sustainable over the long run, they are necessary today. Necessary to respond to the health crisis.
Between February and May, there was a decline in 1.2 million jobs. That's higher than any of the declines in past recessions.
There's so many people hurting out there.
Doug Ford campaigned on balancing the books. Asked today whether cuts or tax increases are on the horizon.
I just can't predict the future. Our main goal is to make sure that we help these families and individuals and small business owners try to get back on their feet.
Today, the opposition hammered the government for what wasn't in the COVID-19 spending plan.
And there's no money in this budget as to what the government is going to spend to make sure that kids go back to school safely.
The finance minister said today the health of the economy is closely linked to the health of Ontarians. If there is a second wave of COVID-19 and there are more closures, things could get worse economically. As for how the government plans to get back on track fiscally, it says we'll have to wait until the budget this fall to find out. Farah Morelli, CBC News, Toronto.
A live look outside here as that humidity still sticks around here in Windsor-Essex. Colette Kennedy has all of the details of what to expect next in her forecast. And joining us now for a live look at the weather is Colette Kennedy. Colette, I did the thing I do during the pandemic all the time. I made a plan and then I bailed. I was going to go watch that big show in the sky last night.
Yes.
And I fell asleep because I got tired. Did you look up at the sky and all? You see anything?
You know what? I couldn't get away from the lights of the city, but do you know that I saw on Twitter like a few comments of disappointment? Like,
yeah.
Oh, is that all? Like,
That's
I only
it?
saw 10 shooting stars. I'm like,
Really?
wow, there are some, big expectations.
Yeah,
Like,
wow.
You have another chance tonight is the good news, and the conditions are right again tonight. So 10, maybe you'll see 20. For those of you who 10 is not enough, there might be 20, but that is the opportunity, like within an hour, to see that many kind of shooting stars. That's what we're talking about with these kind of meteor showers. So the excitement is on, and another opportunity for you. So these are our current temperatures: 28 degrees in Windsor and Chatham-Kent. You're sitting at 26 at the moment, and then we bring in the humidity, and those values are still pretty comfortable, really. 33 right now in Windsor, Chatham-Kent just 31. So that's what I mean. Those dew points are pretty reasonable at the moment. And high pressure is not only looking after us in terms of seeing dry conditions in southwestern Ontario, but let's broaden our perspective here across the Great Lakes. I mean, primarily across the Great Lakes, just kind of to the south here. We're seeing around Minneapolis, I mean, to the west of us, but to the south of the upper Great Lakes, we're seeing some active weather there. But really, it's way down here that we're seeing to the south of the Windsor area before you get into some active weather, or way back to the west of us. Everywhere else is dry because of that sinking air and very stable air. And we've got a few days yet where we're going to see these kinds of conditions. So lots of sunshine for us as we go into the day. Thursday, we should hang on to that primarily into Friday as well. And then things will start to change as we get towards Saturday. So certainly I'm bringing more cloud cover in on Saturday. Now you'll see this model wants to bring the precipitation in. This is midday Saturday. I think it will likely hold to the south of us. I am bringing that chance of some showers in certainly as we go towards Sunday, so the second half of the weekend. Our lows tonight look like this: mid-teens towards upper teens, and then tomorrow afternoon still the heat there, but the humidity not really building, starting to creep up. And then our temperatures towards Saturday with still those dry conditions, and then it cools off a little bit as we get into some wet weather towards that second half of the weekend, Chris.
Okay, something to keep an eye on. Thanks for this, Colette.
You're welcome.
Now, coming up next, we have our first look at the Biden-Harris ticket. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris made their first public appearance together this afternoon, kicking off their already historic run for the White House.
It's a great day for our campaign. It's a great day for America, in my view.
Biden formally introduced Harris as his Democratic running mate in his home state of Delaware. Now, Harris is the first VP candidate to be a woman of color. Her father, originally from Jamaica, her late mother from India. The U.S. Senator and former Attorney General from California already breathing new life and money into this campaign. More than $10 million were donated within hours of Biden asking her to be on his ticket yesterday. Now, the two are expected to raise even more money tonight during a virtual fundraiser. It's 6:29 p.m. and that is it for CBC Windsor News. Now, before we go, we just want to leave you with one last thing. Check this out. A ball python that had been slithering around Chatham wound up in someone's shed. Native to West and Central Africa, but non-venomous. Now in the hands of animal control. They're looking for its rightful owner. Don't forget, for news at any time, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too, so if you slither your way over to Facebook or Instagram and Twitter, just search for CBC Windsor. Power and Politics is up next. Thanks for watching. Make sure you have a great night.